So I fully understand the fear you get as a parent allowing your kids to get involved in a physical activity if they have diabetes. You're fearing that they might go hypoglycemic, they might go hyperglycemic. You don't even know what they can go through because you probably don't know the effect of that specific activity would have on them. So in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do to make sure that your kid is safe, whether it be in playing at school, playing with their friends, just going for a walk, any sort of physical activity, or I should call it, I made a checklist for you to go through every time your kid is involved in any sort of activity. So let's go through it quickly here. So we've got 12 points in that checklist to help you manage your kids' diabetes during physical activity. So make sure that you watch the whole video. First one on the list is frequent blood sugar checks. Now, you will never know the effect of an activity on your kids' blood sugar levels if you're not checking it. So if you're not checking their blood sugar before the exercise, during the exercise, or after the exercise, you will never be able to draw a trend of your blood sugar, of their blood sugar levels, right? And this doesn't just apply for exercising, it also applies when it comes to consuming food, going through stress, traveling, the environment, going through an illness and infection, and so on and so on. So frequent blood sugar checks is a must all the time. Second in the list, invest in a CGM. A CGM stands for continuous glucose monitor. So it's just like the Libra. Well, Libra is considered flash glucose monitor, sorry, but the Dexcom and Adix and all the other brands out there, there's a lot of brands, but basically the monitors, the sensors that you put on, and helps you to check their blood sugar levels without pricking their fingers, and also helps you to draw a trend, helps you draw a graph throughout the day. So why is this important? Before going through why is it important, I have to say that this is very subjective. Only invest if you can afford. It's not essential, all right, but it's going to be very helpful. It's important because let's take a Libra for example. There is always arrows that shows you the trend, shows you where the blood sugar is going. So that's very important for preventing a hyperglycemia or a hypoglycemia, because you can save it before it happening. So very important to know that. My slogan all the time is prevent, not treat. So don't wait for a hypoglycemia to happen. If, let's say, just hypothetically, your kid's blood sugar is 7 millimole per liter and they're about to play football or they're about to go for a run, but then the arrow is going down, showing that the blood sugar is dropping, then you have to think twice. All right, you need more glucose right now just to prevent any hypo episode to happen. So CGMs are very important. If you ever get the choice to invest in either a CGM or a pump, take it from an expert. Investing in a CGM is a lot more beneficial, right? Think big. This is an acronym that I created that says blood glucose monitor, insulin, glucose, right? Big stands for BIG. Anyone, not just kids, anyone that has diabetes, you shouldn't leave the house without having your blood glucose monitor or your CGM, your insulin, and your glucose. That's, even I do this all the time. I would never attempt to go out to do an activity or do anything pretty much unless I have these three, because first of all, it would be good to prevent the hypoglycemia or the hyperglycemia episode. But let's say that happens, I have to be always ready to treat it. So whether if your kid, let's say if they go to school, if they're going to play at the park, if they're going to play in their club, whatever sport that they're doing, you need to inform the coach, the teacher, the nurse, the guardians, whoever is out there, that they are diabetic or they have diabetes, and you need to they need to understand that, okay, there is that insulin that you need to provide them if their blood sugar is high. There's glucose that you need to provide them if their blood sugar is low. So these three things, always you should have them in your pocket or your kid's pocket. Now let's get a bit into details, right? Because obviously I know the first 3 points a lot of people know. So now your kid is going to get involved into an activity regardless of what it is, and you check their blood sugar levels and it's high, it's 40 millimole per liter. In American or Arabic Translation translates to, well, readings translates to 200, around 252 milligram per deciliter. What happens? If this happens, if they're higher than that, then you need to check for ketones. Why? Because ketones are very toxic. You don't want your kid to go and try to do an activity unless it's a very, very, very light intensity activity. I'm going to go through this in a bit. While they have ketones in their urine or the blood, because ketones, if you get involved in an activity, this activity might actually make it worse, because not all physical activities are the same. Not all of them are going to drop your blood sugar levels. Some, in fact, a lot of them will elevate your blood sugar levels, because they're going to tell the liver to dump more glucose, because there are stress hormones in the system. So if the activity is stressful, so such as, for example, sometimes it could be playing football, it could be playing rugby, it could be, if your kid is old enough, it could be lifting weights, it could be sprinting, anything that is more anaerobic than aerobic could result in that. So if there are ketones, you shouldn't really let them exercise unless it's a very, very light intensity exercise, such as walking, right? And this brings me to that point, is the ketones check. If you've done any tests before with your kids, so for example, you took them for a walk, their blood sugar was around, let's hypothetically say 10 millimole per liter, took them for a walk for like an hour, and then it dropped to 5, then you know that this specific activity will drop their blood sugar levels. So if they're hyperglycemic, they are allowed to do that kind of activity, but don't let them get involved in anything rough if their blood sugar is high, especially if it's 14 millimole per liter, right? Now, what if they're hyperglycemic but they are not over 40 millimole per liter? What happens? Now, as I said, you need to understand and you need to know the effect of that specific activity on the blood sugar levels. So if that activity works on dropping their blood sugar, such as anything light intensity, like light intensity cycling, light intensity swimming, just walking, then it's fine if they can do it, because it's going to help them in actually dropping their blood sugar levels without taking insulin. But if you're not sure, or you know that for a fact that this activity would elevate their blood sugar levels, then you need to give them some insulin to counter that. I cannot tell you what dosage you need to give them. Everyone's got their own insulin to carb ratio. Everyone's got their own correction dose. Everyone got their own background insulin dose. So you need to understand and test with your kid how much that is. If you need help, specific help for your kid, reach out to me. I coach parents, so I can help you determine that, okay? Now, what about if it's in the other side? So you test it and it's less than 5 millimole per liter, which translates to 90 milligrams per deciliter. Then definitely, regardless of what that exercise is, you need to give them a bit of glucose. Why am I saying this, even though some exercises do elevate their blood sugar levels? Because any exercise that is high intensity will still result in increasing their metabolism. So for example, if I am to lift weights, so I'm talking about myself here, and proper heavy weights, I get so stressed, my blood sugar elevates, but afterwards my blood sugar drops because I'm still burning the calories. Now this could happen before, or this could happen midway during the session. Same with your kid, this could happen. So if it's under 5 millimole per liter, straight away give them glucose, probably 15 grams of glucose, depending on the exercise, depending on the intensity, depending on the duration as well, and then let them start. But don't let them start a physical activity if their blood sugar is, let's say, 4.5. Now that's like you're 0.5 millimole per liter away from hypoglycemia, right? Excuse me. By the way, I just recovered from COVID, so I'm still got it, I think. Anyway, so next point, where is the injection site? Now, again, this is important, and this is something that a lot of people know, but when you inject insulin, or when you train, when you work out, the blood flow in the muscle increases, right? So if you're injecting insulin in a specific area, let's say in the thigh, and your kid goes and play football, so the muscle where you injected the insulin, so I'm not talking about any muscular injection, no, insulin is all subcutaneous, but sometimes the insulin takes time to be absorbed. So if your kid is wearing a pump, or if they are using MDI, multiple daily injections, in a specific area, try to change that if the workout that they're gonna do revolves around this area. So again, this doesn't really apply much for kids, but this will apply a lot when it comes to lifting weights. So if you're gonna go to squat and you've got your pump, for example, the cannula is installed on your thigh and it's producing insulin continuously, this insulin can be absorbed quicker. So you need to think of that. When was the last time your kid took insulin or carbohydrates? Obviously, insulin doesn't work straight away and it doesn't diminish straight away. So the normal rule of thumb is that insulin, short-acting insulin, stays in the body for 4 hours. And carbohydrates it depends of course on the glycemic index, gets broken down in the system from 15 minutes up to 4 hours as well. So what did your kid have before starting the activity? Did they have insulin? Did they have a lot of carbs? Did the influence of either the insulin or the carbs or the fats or any other food still working? Is it still affecting their blood sugar levels? You need to think about that. And again, I can't give a specific advice, just a generic advice is that you need to know what they had just before the exercise and what they're gonna have after the exercise and what they're gonna have as well during the exercise. It depends on the duration. So sometimes you need to throw in glucose, and this is not just for people with diabetes, even marathon runners during their runs, they top up their glucose, well, their muscle glycogen with glucose. So you need to be aware of all that. Are they using an MDI or a pump? Excuse me. Why is this important? There is a benefit of a pump over MDI. And again, MDI are the pens, just the normal insulin pens, right? The benefit here is that with a pump, you're in control of the basal insulin, so the background insulin that you have, that your kid has, because with the MDI, with the pens, you take the background insulin once or maximum twice a day, and it will be released in the body the same rate. With a pump, you can control that. You can either temporarily disable the background insulin, or you can reduce it, or you can increase it depending on the effect. And something like that, like a pump, is very helpful when it comes to people with dawn phenomena. Dawn phenomena is when you wake up very hyperglycemic without eating anything and you wonder why. If you have a pump, straight away you would increase the basal units by, well, I can't say numbers, but depending on you. And then this would tackle the hormones. This would tackle the increase that the hormones create in the body. So it's very important. If you have a pump, you're a bit more flexible. If you know that for a fact that your kid, when he plays football, their blood sugar drops, then you know that you can eliminate all the basal from his system for the couple of hours that he's playing. Now, how long is the activity? Any activity over 60 minutes, regardless of what it is, you need to top up with glucose. And obviously you don't do that if you're hyperglycemic during the activity. That's not an option. In fact, you take insulin, but I'm talking from the physical side of things, not the diabetes side of things. So we have something called muscle glycogen. I've explained it many times. Muscle glycogen are the carbs that are inside the muscles. We use them when we do a specific activity. So now if your kid is playing around at school, they might use all the muscle glycogen, and they might use the liver glycogen as well. So glycogen is stored in the liver as well. Now, if they use all the glycogen in the system, the body cannot produce any more glucose. So glycogen gets broken down to glucose to give it to support the body, and the other way around. What can you do if that happens? Nothing but replenishing the glycogen. And that's why it's very important for people that lift weights to consume not just protein, but also carbohydrates to replenish the glycogen. Now, your kid, if they are exercising for over 60 minutes, definitely they need to top up their glycogen levels and top up their blood glucose. Otherwise, it's going to result in hypoglycemia. Last on the list is hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. I'm not going to go through the importance of hydration for um, anything not related to diabetes because it's very obvious. And all I'm going to say is if you remember how thirsty your kid was before getting diagnosed, or how thirsty they get when they're hyperglycemic, this is because the body needs a lot of water to flush the glucose from the bloodstream. So you need to do that, because if your kid's hyperglycemic, there isn't another way to drop their blood sugar levels apart from taking insulin, which takes time, doing a very light intensity exercise, which is very subjective, or drinking a lot of water, which will help along with the activity. So when your kid is training, or not even training, by the way, all the time, anyone should be consuming from 2 to 4 liters of water, whether you have diabetes or not. But obviously, because this is diabetes specific, I had to speak about this. I hope this checklist helped you. I don't think there's anything else to add here, but if there is, let me know. I'm not sure where you're watching this video. If you're watching it on Facebook, make sure to check Diabetes Academy. Make sure to check my YouTube and my other socials, because I post a lot there. If you're watching it on YouTube, well done. Make sure you subscribe for Diabetes Academy. And yeah, see you guys later.